Saludos amigos de Breaking News Beer and Coffee, aquí estamos, un episodio más, un capítulo más. ¿Qué tal? Jorge Carramos Lugo, aquí estoy con Enrique Fernández y Arturo Ferrer, y hoy nos acompaña alguien bien especial, alguien sumamente especial, la leyenda, una leyenda en el mundo de cervezas artesanales, en el mundo de cervezas en general. Si nosotros somos evangelistas, él es el papa del mundo de las cervezas. Un escritor famoso, ha escrito sobre 4 libros, tiene coautor en diferentes libros también, escribió Radical Brewing, y por el libro más famoso de él es Cómo degustar cerveza o Tasting Beer. Sobre 200 ejemplares vendidos alrededor del mundo, sobre 8 idiomas diferentes traducidos. Hoy nos acompaña el papa de las cervezas, Randy Mosher. Bienvenido, Randy.
Bienvenido.
Thank you for being here, Randy. It's a pleasure to have you here.
No, it's great to be here.
For us, it's an honor. So, like I said in you are like that in your book says like you are an evangelist, but for us, you are the Pope. You know, you are the Pope. So we are part of your evangelion. You know, your
yeah.
No, we're all just trying to spread the word, you know.
Yeah.
Like, my day it was Michael Jackson and Fred Eckhart and Charlie Papazian and those guys, and that were my heroes. And so, you know, like I just always want to spread the word about great beer.
Nice.
They gave you the torch.
Yeah.
That's right.
Go on. Yeah.
So before we start talking about your books, your history around on the beer world, what is the right way to taste a beer? Your right way to your recommendation to taste a beer. So we have a few.
Right way to taste the beer, get it in, you know, pour it into a glass because you can't smell anything through that little hole in the can.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because beer is 90% smell. So you want to, once you get it into a glass, you want to kind of see if you can smell anything. We call it a drive-by tasting. So move the beer, just sort of move the beer in front of it. And sometimes you can smell a little malt, a little hops. Some of the chemicals in there are very volatile, and they go away pretty quickly. And you can actually smell them easier from a distance than up close. Weird as that is.
Yeah, I can smell the hops. I am right tasting Sam Arnold.
St. Arnold, yeah.
Coach.
One more, yeah.
I've got a Monk's Cafe Grand Cru here.
That's great.
And I have one of the biggest selling beers in Puerto Rico. This is a brewery from Puerto Rico, Ocean Lab.
Yeah.
This is his double IPA.
Great.
Very nice, very nice.
And I'm drinking a beer that was given to me when I was in Brazil last year.
Wow.
It's called Diavolo.
Diavolo.
Made by a really nice brewery in Rio de Janeiro.
Nice.
That's a cool looking bottle. It's like a weird design.
Yeah, this is the kind of standard Belgian 600 ml bottle. It's the only place in the world that has them, as far as I know. So unique. So. But anyway, that's a very nice beer.
So we serve it, and then we
serve it. And
so smelling, you know, you're always trying to get as much detail of your language. You know, vocabulary is difficult for aroma. We're just not, like, our brains are not built for that. So everybody struggles a bit. But you know, if you say malty, okay, well, what kind of malty is it? Like bready or cracker or nutty? You know, you're always going for like more the level of detail.
Yep.
And then once you get it in your mouth, roll it around. In wine, they do this thing called chewing the wine. The idea is to get that beer all over your mouth, which gives you a lot of surface area, and it warms it up quickly, because the warmer it is, the better you can smell it.
Yeah, of course.
And then so again, you're trying to come up with some more words on it, maybe some aroma things. Even though it's in your mouth, you still smell aroma. And on the next sip, swallow it, you know, let it warm up, swallow it, and then breathe out through your nose. It's called the retronasal.
Oh, okay.
The brain goes into a different switches into a different mode that's more about flavor. It's more about familiarity and like or dislike. And sometimes you can come up with different words for it. And there's actually chemicals in beer that you can't smell in the glass. You can only smell them after they've been in your mouth and broken apart, because the enzymes in your mouth will break these, pull the aromatic part off the sugar that they're bound onto and release it in your mouth. So there's a lot of different reasons why doing that last bit of tasting. And the other thing I always tell people is you want to make sure that you pay attention to the whole taste. It's not one moment. It starts, it has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end, and it has an aftertaste. And you want to pay attention to it all the way through, because different things come and go. You know, the bitterness is slow. It takes a while to build. It takes a while to fall off. So you just want to, and that aftertaste is really important for beer quality, because the beer may taste good, okay, at the first, like in your mouth right at first, but in the, if it's kind of nasty at the end and it hits on your palate and it's harsh and astringent, that's not really very nice beer. So it's got to be good all the way through.
I've heard you talk before about the retronasal thing. I've heard you mention it specifically about IPAs, saying that some of the compounds that like convert when you put them in your mouth.
Yeah, they're hop compounds.
About the hop aroma. And
I always do that. Awesome. That type. I didn't know that people do it, but I always do it, and people say, "What are you doing that?" And I always say, "I don't know," because I get more taste. I get more of the beer. The compounds. And people say, "Oh, because you look silly, man, doing that."
We're just trying to squeeze out every little bit. As a taster, you just want to get everything that's in there. So that's just, you use all the techniques you can for that.
Well, Randy, what was it that pulled you into the beer world in the first place? Was it a memorable beer? Was it somewhere you went, someplace you visited?
Well, when I was in college, I went to college in Cincinnati, and at the time there were 4 local breweries there in 1970, and these were not craft breweries. These were old, dilapidated, beat up, rundown, not very good breweries. But I had this idea in my head: there's different kind of beer. And then a friend and I started home brewing after talking about it for 10 years. We started actually brewing, and that was what it really did it for me. And we got our hands on the Michael Jackson World Guide to Beers, and we used it like a homebrew book.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't much in the way of homebrewing literature then. There were some weird books from England that referenced a bunch of beers that we'd never tasted or even heard of, and with strange ingredients like treacle and things like that. So it's like, I don't know what we're gonna do with this. But we were brewing triples and wit beers and saisons and stuff, because you couldn't buy those in the U.S. at that time in the mid '80s. And so we had a lot of fun just trying to figure out how to do it, what was in there. And eventually got our hands on some professional textbooks and I started making recipe sheets and charts and things. And that was sort of the beginning of my, actually starting to work towards a book and stuff. So I think
the same thing happens in Puerto Rico here, because we didn't get any beers from outside of Puerto Rico. I think the home brewers were the first ones that make beer from around the world. We don't know what we're doing, because we didn't know what it's like to taste ESB or brown beer or IPA or something like that. It's like we are making it, and we're supposed to. This is supposed to drink it. It's like a taste like that. This is really a brown ale. I don't know. It's the same thing happening in Puerto Rico.
Sure, yeah, it happens. It's the same everywhere.
Yeah. Another question.
So what was the first, let's say, of the newer craft beers type of things that you tasted in the U.S.? What was the first beer that you said, like, wow, this is apart from the classic triples and saisons and all that classic stuff from Europe?
I think it was Anchor Steam.
Anchor Steam.
Because that was really that was the brewery that was an older brewery but they completely reinvented those beers in 1971. I mean, completely threw out the old recipes and started from scratch. And so in a lot of ways, it's the last of this old sort of what they call steam beer, but it really is the first craft beer in the US, right? So it was caramel malt and the weirdest hop they could find and all malt beer. And, you know, so it has all the characteristics of a, you know, American amber or something like that. And so I used to work in advertising, and we would go to California to do photo shoots and make commercials and things like that. And you know, we're up on the company dollar going out to dinner and things. And, you know, we used to, there was a place out on the ocean that we would go out to, and they had Anchor Steam on tap with seafood. And it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe how good this is, you know? So I still have a soft spot for that beer.
I don't, you know what? I think the first beer that came to Puerto Rico, the first beer that was craft, I think it was the Anchor Steam and the Liberty, because
the Liberty Ale.
The Liberty Ale. Those two was the first craft brewer. Craft
Probably
beer
that
came
and
in
some
Puerto Rico.
stuff from Sam Adams.
Sí.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sam Adams.
The first ones around the block, yeah.
Well, Sam Adams have been here. You know, it's like this is the new guys in the block. You know.
Yeah, they've been around for a while now in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, yeah.
So now you were talking about weird ingredients in beers. With Five Rabbit and Forbidden Root, your partners. Am I correct in those two breweries?
Yep,
And they're both in Chicago.
Yeah.
I've never tried beers from them, but from what I've read, it seems you guys are like trying out all sorts of different stuff and weird ingredients and combinations. And what's the latest that's been going on with those two?
Well, at Forbidden Root, we just got a beer out of the lagering tanks that we call Purple Pills. And the idea is to try and make a Pilsner that is still a Pilsner, but that has some florals used in it in a way that just takes that Pilsner hop character and just shifts it a little bit into some new territory without making it not a Pilsner. So we used some chamomile and some jasmine and a root of an iris plant called orris root that has a real deeply fragrant, sweet, fruity kind of aroma to it. It's kind of hard to describe. And then the chamomile is also a little bit like juicy fruit gum. It has a kind of a bright, fruity, fun fruity. And then the jasmine is a little exotic, a little bit grapey, and it's got a bit of a kind of animal quality to it too. That's why they use a lot of perfumes and stuff. So, but we do a lot of little tabletop experiments where we'll take our ingredients and we'll soak it in vodka for a day, and then strain that out and use a eyedropper or a syringe or something to measure very small amounts of things into beers, and we could work at the table, my brewer and myself and my partner if he's interested, and we can really try a lot of things rather quickly and get the general idea of how much of each thing we want to do, and then we can refine it, you know, as we go through the process.
You literally start out with like a glass of beer and start.
And you put it,
trying
a blank canvas, and you put it the little oils that you make.
Yeah, you can do it. I mean, we sometimes will blend together different commercial beers to get the right alcoholic strength and hoppiness and color and sort of malt flavor. And then you can add fruit that way. You can soak chilies in vodka and add chilies that way. There's a lot of, like almost all of these specialty ingredients you can do that way. And so at Five Rabbit, we've got in a pilot batch only that we're hoping to actually produce is a beer made with dragon fruit.
Okay, yeah.
Nice.
It's a very red color, right?
Yeah, it has a crazy pink color.
Yeah.
We've done a couple of beers with prickly pear cactus fruit, and it's a little similar kind of flavor, maybe a little more perfumey aroma, more like a little bit of guava aroma, you know, because guava has that like perfumey character.
I think that both fruits are from cactus.
Yeah, they are.
Sort of, yeah.
And
I have a pitaya plant in the backyard, but it's
You
never
really?
a single
no
dragon
fruit?
fruit. So it's like the plant's really cool. It looks like something out of a cartoon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
So Five Rabbits is a more Latino-oriented ingredient
Right.
brewery, right?
Yeah. So my partner's from Costa Rica. His wife
Ah.
is from Peru. But she spent her teenage years in Brazil. I have another partner from. We have partners from Mexico and Argentina and Guatemala. The brewers, first generation, it was like second generation American, but his parents are from Guatemala.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
other brewers' parents are from Mexico, I think. And we have a guy from Colombia who's been kind of helping us with sales and marketing and things like that. So, and I'm the gringo. It's my job. It's been a big privilege to be able to help interpret that culture and find ways to express it through beer. We do a lot of storytelling. We like to think of our beers as liquid stories.
Of course.
So we're exploring ingredients or a region or a type of cuisine like Oaxacan or like what happened when the monks came over and brought the European plants with them, and plants and vegetables and things. We're just trying to find different ways to celebrate the culture.
Yeah, because that brewery have a lot of different cultures, Guatemala, Argentina, Colombia, Peru. We are all Latinos, but we are different in our cuisine, in everything,
Yeah.
But
that's what's so beautiful about Latin America.
There's
so much variety there. It's incredible, So it's always been really fun.
Jorge the other day was telling us about I hadn't seen it, but he was talking about the documentary they did on Five Rabbits, and If Your Hair thing came out.
Chinga tu pelo.
Yeah, I watched it a couple of days ago, and it's a great story. It's funny, but it's a great.
Yeah, we after the election we put the beer aside and decided to leave it for a while, but earlier this year we just got fed up and thought, all right, we're going to bring it back. As well as election year again. So
right, and I appreciate it. You guys doing that because it means a lot for the whole Latino community.
Yeah.
Yep.
We just, the story, because we just felt like we had no choice.
Right.
Randy, what do you think about the new styles of beers, like the hazy IPAs, the pastry stouts? What do you think about those newcomers?
I love the juicy IPAs. Because as I said in my note, Jorge, I love wheat beer. I love hop aroma. I'm not that crazy about bitterness. I like bitterness, but I'm not like, I gotta have 100 IBUs guy. So I like the balance, but I really love those hop aromas, and I especially really love the hop aromas of the newer hops, the Southern Hemisphere hops and the newer varieties from Europe and North America that are much more fruit forward and tropical and whatever. And so at Forbidden Root, we've been brewing those for about 3 years. We got into that pretty early. It's funny, you talk to a lot of brewers in the U.S. and there's still a bunch of people that are like, no, I don't know about them. I don't know what Vinny's point of view is, but there's a lot of brewers that just the stupidest thing they ever heard of, and they would never brew one. And I don't really understand why people are so agitated about it.
So you don't think it's a fad?
Well, it's everything's a trend of one kind or another. I think we were going the wrong direction because beer was getting stupidly bitter. And there's only so many C hops you can really like. Those are okay, but they're a pretty small box in terms of their flavor. Centennial, Cascade, all those. So for me, it's just great to see a way to they're not really IPAs in the sense of like coming from English tradition. They're really more of a reinvention of what would happen if we wanted to make a super aromatic beer that had this luscious creaminess. So it's like, they're like crazy dry hopped wheat beers. Yeah. I mean, the ones that we make at Forbidden Root, they're 30 to 50% adjuncts. like 30% rye or 30% oats or stuff like that. So they're
flake
really
wheat, flake oats,
a lot
everything
of
flake.
So we like that real thick. Pastry stouts, you know, those like I like brownies too, but I wouldn't sit down and eat 6 of them.
No, I feel like one bottle for 4 people.
For me, they're special occasions. If I ever people give them to me if I'm traveling or I buy them occasionally, but I have a hard time finding the occasions to drink them.
No, it's one bottle and it's very hard to drink it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
one bottle. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's so sweet. It's so alcoholic.
To some extent, those are internet beers. They're like you know, just meant for Untapped and things like that, where you take a taste. They're rare. You got it. Here's the picture. I check it in.
Next.
Next.
You know,
Instagram beer.
And then you're off to the next one. You never have to taste that one again.
What about the old styles? You know, the forgiving styles that goes. People remembering those styles again. What do you think about those?
I think it's exciting. You know, I started writing and talking about Goza back in 1992 or 94 or something like that. So I've always thought, because I had access to the Siebel Institute library, and there was some books in there that had some, you know, that talked about those beers. And so I saw it. It's like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of those dead beers. You know, that's the one that's really become the most famous. And so I mean, I think it's like I'd love to see all the old beers come back. I love variety. You know, you know, when you ask me which beers were my favorites, like, well, I don't know. I don't really want to answer that question.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to limit myself, you know.
Yeah, it's very difficult. Yeah.
What am I in the mood for? What am I eating? Am I outside? Am I inside? Is it hot?
Yeah.
Is it cold? You know, I really like think about beer like that. It's like, I like hamburgers too, but I don't want to eat one.
Speaking about food, what would you pair with these? Like a Flemish sour.
Flemish sour. Let's see.
Flemish sour.
Something like something with some fat to it would be probably pretty good. I'm thinking about like a stinky cheese would be good. I don't know if you ever have those like washed rind cheeses that have that kind of really like nice stinky aromatics. That's a pretty good pairing with that. Maybe something with mushrooms, you know, like a I don't know, mushroom soup or, you know, something where there's mushrooms in it. The sour beers are a little tricky. You know, it's almost like you think about a wine pairing.
Yeah.
Because those beers are a lot more like wine. And sometimes, like I've even with wine people, I've done a couple tastings, like beer tasting for wine lovers, you know, and this is like, and I always have a sour brown in there because that's like, oh, I kind of understand this, you know. So what would you put with a Pinot? Maybe you have like duck, you know, duck breast or something. It's kind of fatty and it's a little delicate. The flavor's delicate, but there's a lot of fat there, you know, and that would work with that. What else you got to pair?
With the Kolsch?
With the Kolsch, oh, something pretty light, you know.
Yep.
A fish.
It's not really much of a food beer. You can kind of wash stuff down, but you know, maybe like fish tacos or something that's just like lighter. You know, those pale fizzy beers seem to go good with fried things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that for sure.
And the last one is a double IPA.
Double IPA. Well, I got to go with blue cheese on that. That's like, you know, that's like my famous pairing. But really, like blue cheese and IPA, if you never tried it together.
Oh, I never tried it before.
I gotta try that one.
And even like I was doing a thing in Beaumont, Texas, like East Texas, and this woman was, you know, she likes whatever their lightest beer is, and she after the taste she goes, I hate blue cheese, and really I don't care much for IPA either, but that was really good together. So that's the beauty of beer and food. Sometimes you get people out of their habits and get them trying new things, you know, which is always great to see. But the fat and the salt really get cut by the bitterness and the little sweetness in the beer, and then the hop hop aroma and the blue cheese aroma, like that mold thing, they kind of meld together. They're more similar than you might think. It's kind of magic. So try that sometime. Even if you don't like blue cheese, even if you don't like IPA.
Blue cheese is a very strong.
I'm not a huge fan of blue cheese, but I am a huge fan of double IPA. So.
There's lighter ones and more intense ones. There's a whole scale. So you can go all the way from like a nice hoppy Pilsner and a blue brie, you know, a real soft like Danish blue or something, all the way up to barley wine and Stilton. So.
And Randy, on the last beer, your beer from
my beer. Well, this is a Belgian triple. It's a little thermally. It's got a little color, but these are really good with like luxurious seafood, like shrimp, scallops, lobster, anything like that, because the food's delicate but kind of rich. Also, really good with a high butterfat cheese. Like one of those French, they call them triple cream cheeses, like Saint Andre or something, because again, those are really, really fatty and really creamy, and you don't want to put too much bitterness in it. It kind of destroys the subtlety of them, but they're very, very fatty. So a triple with that high amount of alcohol in it will kind of cut through that, kind of melt that fat off your mouth, dissolve the fat a bit, and get you ready for the trip. So
in the flavor, since we're talking about more of the food side, the 5 basic flavors: the sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. All right, those are the 5 like right now.
Those are the kind of basic ones. There's a bunch of like carbonation, water. There's a bunch of other ones, but
how would you like explain in layman's terms? The umami one seems to be the one that most people are like, it's not that easy to explain. The way umami tastes. How would you explain to someone?
It's just a rich, savory flavor. So, you know, mushrooms have a lot of it. Like Japanese cuisine is very rich in it. Like, you know, I don't know if it's reached down there, but ramen. There's this like big fat for like very high quality ramen. It's all about umami. Because they're putting they're putting the fish stock in there, the dashi, and they're putting, you know, mushrooms, like shiitake mushrooms, very, very high, and those things. So those are just like, and all that bone broth, that's pure umami.
Yeah, and the broth is like it's 24-hour making the broth.
Yeah, right. And you let that go cold, you can stick a fork in it, you know.
It's super fatty.
Extract all that protein matter out of the bones.
Yeah.
And you know, into the stock, so your lips stick together. But that's all pure umami. So it's really about those kind of like anything like gravy or beef, you know, any kind of stewed dish. Some cured meat like prosciutto and those sorts of things. You know, the easiest way, if you're ever like doing a thing with people and you want to just like do it, get a little bottle of MSG at the grocery store and just put like 2 little crystals on your finger and let it melt on your tongue. And it won't taste all that good by itself. MSG is kind of like weirdly salty and kind of metallic, and people don't like it, but once it kind of melts and goes away, you get this feeling in your mouth. You know, it doesn't hit you like salt or sugar or something like that. It's more subtle, but once it gets on in your palate and you start to sense it, it lingers on for a very long time. So it has a different kind of, like, each taste has a different sort of dynamic in terms of how quick it comes on, how quick it goes away, what the max is, what the minimum is. You know, it's like dynamic range in audio. You know, each thing has each individual taste has a different.
I think that kind of flavor that you are explaining to us, we can find in Puerto Rico in this classic Chinese Puerto Rican dish called tostones con It's like it's tostones
basically fried
garlic.
plantains
with garlic, but made with Chinese way. The Chinese here in Puerto Rico made that tostones, and I think that explains
really good,
everything.
Somehow that became a thing in Puerto Rico. Every Chinese restaurant serves fried plantains with garlic.
I love plátanos. I think those
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
it's crazy good. And garlic actually contains a lot of another very subtle taste called kokumi.
Kokumi.
That is related to umami, but even more kind of hard to pin down.
Yeah.
But it's in all those stewy dishes where there's just that kind of sense of lingering richness. So
yeah, everything with garlic.
That's literally another
better.
flavor. Like kokumi is like
another flavor, but it's sort of more a potentiator of umami than it is. It doesn't. It's hard to even talk about it, but it doesn't really have like a flavor. But when you put it in, it makes everything taste more mouth filling. So it enhances the texture of foods. It enhances umami, kind of magnifies umami. So a lot of industrial food production companies are looking at those like umami and kokumi to make their foods taste better, to cover up the sort of bitterness that sometimes comes with some of either the ingredients that they have to use or the way they're processed, like canned soup, right? The reason they put so much salt in canned soup is not because people like salt, but the process of cooking that soup inside the can makes it bitter.
Yeah.
And so if you don't put a lot of salt in, then it tastes bitter, right? So they're trying
balance that out.
Kind of exactly, balance or take your attention away or however you want to describe it. Yeah, mask it, I guess.
How do you came up with the tasting beer book? So it's a really complete book with history, have how to taste, beer styles, ingredients. How you came up with this esta joya?
Well, it involves Ray Daniels. You should have him on sometime.
Yes,
he's a good friend. But he and I were started teaching a class at the Siebel Institute called Master of Beer Styles, and it was a 3-day class aimed at professional brewers to talk about beer style. And then the Siebel got requests from beer distributors who some of their people had taken this class, and they said, "Can you cut it down to 2 days and get rid of all this recipe stuff and give us a little more history, a little more background, and throw some tasting in it, and like basic spiked beer and some things like that." And so I put that course together, and then I taught that material for about 2 years. And at that point, I took my PowerPoint. I started to think, there really isn't a book like this out there, And so I took my PowerPoint outline or my PowerPoint slides and stripped it out of a PowerPoint, and I had a 20,000 word outline. And so I just sat down and wrote to the outline, basically. So, and so it's organized in the way I taught it, which I think makes it a better book because, you have to start at the beginning and build people's knowledge along as you go to the point where you need to be to cover a certain topic. So
you ended up with a beer Bible, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in 9 languages with that thing.
Wow.
That's
awesome. It's got it published in Brazil and Korea. We got it published in Ukraine. I got an email from this woman named this is Svetlana, but you can call me Lana. It's like, I'd like to translate your book. And it's like, great, but I need a publisher. So 2 days later, I get an email. Hello, this is Yuri from Publisher.
Wow.
Published her book. So she found this publisher, and they did a beautiful hardback version of it. She did the translation, or she and her husband, they found a couple of mistakes that my English editors had never found. And
wow.
So they definitely read it.
Yeah, they definitely read it. Yeah. So so that's been kind of fun,
It's a really nice book.
What is your next book you're doing? You have a plan to make another one?
I have no more than a plan. I'm writing it right now.
Wow.
We don't have a title. We haven't agreed on a title yet, but it's a book about tasting, but it's not a book about beer.
Okay.
So it's really because I'm writing about beer, and I'm not sure I have nothing else to say about beer, but I always like to do things that haven't been done. And it's getting harder and harder with beer. All the obvious books kind of been done. And I don't want to write like a book on hazy IPAs or anything like that. I don't know. It's not my thing. I just don't find that, like, in terms of like the work to make a book, I want to learn new things. So this is basically starting at the very beginning with taste and mouthfeel, and then going through taste, mouthfeel, aroma, and then the way those get integrated. I'm talking about language. So the first 2/3 of the book is really about, here's how weird we all are. Here's why this is hard. Here's how we're built. Here's how all of these various systems work. And then the second half of the book is, okay, now you want to taste some stuff? Let's talk about how to do it. And let's talk about vocabulary, and let's talk about technique, and let's have insight from people who do this, like at breweries and at coffee places and food, flavor companies and all kinds of things. So it's slow going because I'm publishing through a university press, and the book needs to be completely documented and footnoted, and more of a, like, in terms of the process, is more of an academic.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So that means every fact I put in there, I have to have a paper trail from a scientific paper.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's very challenging. Plus, I was just going crazy with taste. It seems like, yeah, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, umami. How hard can this be? Well, 2 months later, I get to salt. And I think that's got to be super easy. And it turns out that there's two completely separate and different systems to taste salt. One of them is like salt in the normal range, where if your body's a little depleted, you kind of need more. It makes salt taste better. So your senses have feedback down from the brain to tell the lower parts of your brain, hey, this is good now, right? And then there's a second system that is like based on, it's like extreme salt. That's like, don't drink the seawater, don't like, that's like designed just, and they're on different parts of the tongue, and the wiring's different, and the transduction mechanism is different, like everything's different. And there's all these little, like every one of those little, there are receptors that latch onto a molecule, and then they go inside the cell, and then it's like a crazy pinball machine where something busts open and now something's in two pieces, and each one of those hits three other things, and then eventually goes down, and four different things come together to send a signal out of the cell.
So it's a chemistry lesson right there.
Chemistry and biophysics and neuroscience and I'm not a scientist. I'm an artist, and I write and whatever, and I'm a brewery partner. But so it's just getting your head inside the language and trying to understand these systems and how they all work is a challenge. And in order to write something, you really have to understand it one level up from where you're trying to write, to make sure you're not missing anything, and to make sure you got everything in the right perspective and they're explaining it correctly. And all of this science on tasting is pretty new in the last 20 or even 10 years. Like I'm working on mouthfeel and touch reception, and the receptors for touch have just been figured out in the last 3 years.
Wow. So
you read a paper from 2015, it's like they say we have no idea. And it's like, is that true? And then you look some more and you find the paper. Oh yeah, now we got this one, but we still don't know this. So it's been a journey.
Sounds like the book is going to have a bunch of different applications, though, which is great.
So yeah, it should be a pretty wide audience. We're pitching it as a book for people who want to do tasting better, whether it's just like they like wine or beer, or they're professional. It's not really a professional textbook, but also people are interested in neuroscience and psychology and sensory science and things like that. So even if you're not really all that into being like a spectacular taster, it's still pretty fascinating stuff. A lot of really interesting evolutionary things. There's tons of cool stuff.
New science.
You have taste buds in your nose.
What?
Really?
You have sweet and bitter taste buds in the nose, and the purpose of them is to detect and kill bacteria.
Wow.
Oh, that's new science.
It's crazy. And people who people are really sensitive to bitterness have fewer colds because their
Really?
system is more robust.
So it blocks out more negative stuff basically then.
Yeah, it's like it's not part of the immune system. It's what they call innate immune response that happens at the cellular level. Doesn't even go bother your immune system to start sending out cells, because it takes a while for your immune system. It takes sometimes days to get your immune system, like, that's why you get the flu and then 3 days later you got a fever.
Mm.
That's your immune system building up all these cytokines and all that stuff.
Wow.
But so this happens just like instant. So one makes the sweet sensing cell makes sugar, squirts out sugar, and as long as the sugar stays at a high level, it inhibits the bitter sensing cell. But as soon as the sugar drops, that's a sign to that cell that bacteria are feeding on that sugar, that there's bacteria in your nose, and then it disinhibits the bitter cell and says, "Go for it." And the bitter cell can sense the compounds of bitter on the outside of bacteria that bacteria use to talk to each other, and squirts out nitric oxide, which is a lethal gas, which goes right through the bacteria and kills them. And then the sweet cells squirt out a peptide, which is like a little fragment of a protein that's also toxic to bacteria. So that just happens like right now,
Super
at
quick.
a cellular level.
Wow.
Boom, boom.
It's amazing how much
It's amazing,
weird
yeah.
stuff we have and we don't even
That's
take it all for granted.
That's the big lesson of the book. That it's all inside us, doing all this stuff for us. Most of it is completely out of sight.
Mm-hmm. How do you see the beer industry now and in the near future? How do you see it?
Well, right now we're in survival mode.
Yep.
So it's pretty tough here. I'm sure it's difficult down there for people.
Yeah.
So my Five Rabbit just opened up on Sunday for limited outdoor seating, and Forbidden Root opened, I think, last Thursday maybe. And so we're doing a lot of takeout. We're doing beer dinner, online Zoom beer dinners and stuff like that. So we're surviving. This will pass eventually, but
yep.
It's hard for restaurants and stuff. But the beer market's become very crowded. We have almost 300 breweries in the Chicago area. So it's insanely competitive. And, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's a tricky question.
Yeah.
Well, it's just like nobody really knows where.
That's right.
Oh, I mean, and people are like, well, what's the next big style? It's like, if I knew that, I'd be rich,
Magic ball.
Yeah, it's the number of the lotto.
Yeah, and I think in the end, craft beer is just like make a beer that you like and you like to drink and you think is interesting, and hopefully people will come along with you.
Yeah.
And that's the way it's always been. So.
In this couple of days that we are enclosed in our homes, I just try a new recipes. Like I am a home brewer too. I try new recipes from beers I never heard of on my life, like the Kutbusa and Grodziskie. And I made those beers. I never have them, but I followed the recipe, and I think I make.
We hope so.
I hope.
Know.
But I like it. I like it.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Those guys like it too.
Grodziskie is great.
Yeah, I love that beer.
I brewed that beer for a Michael Jackson presentation years back in the 90s. He came through Chicago, and he would always come and hang out with the homebrewers because we were always doing interesting things. And he came and I said, Michael, I'll brew 3 dead beers, and you could talk about them. So I brewed a Goza Sati and Grodziskie. And that Grodziskie, sometimes you look at those old recipes and you think, I don't know. It looks what they're doing. And then you do it, it's like, oh yeah, of course. It's look.
And you try it. Then you try it. You say, oh, this is a good beer. This is a good
Didn't
recipe.
expect it to work like that. That's the beauty of doing those things, because you would have never thought to do that.
Yeah, it's like I love that beer. I already made it like 3 times already. Here in Puerto Rico, we have this. We are in the summer, and the heat here is so overpowering that a Grodziskie is like it's like a gas of heaven. It's a glass of heaven. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the goses and the Berliner Weisses
Goses,
here are
yeah.
perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
It's super refreshing and interesting at the same time. It's not a
Yeah. Have you guys used those kavaikis at all?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those
I
are
You
already use
recently
it.
made a super like a hoppy pale ale, and it was fantastic. You couldn't
no,
even like
they were great.
if
Yeah.
you didn't tell me he used some random Norwegian yeast, I would have
I-
thought it was
yeah.
a super clean like 0.5.
I put it.
Some of those
I
are
fermented my beer outside of the fridge. It's like 88 something. I later fermented 88 and came out very, very great.
Yeah, that's
It's very great,
like
very
a very-
nice.
That's so
I
cool.
think it's a yeast for the Caribbean. It's the best yeast for the
Oh
Caribbean.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you guys used it in the commercial brewers or?
We have it Forbidden Root. We've used a couple of strains. Some of the strains have some more kind of weird flavor that,
Yeah.
depending upon what the beer is, can work or not work. But that one that's super clean, I forget which one that is. It's maybe it's one of the Norwegian ones. Real nice. So
Yeah, my brother make another one that he too like he fermented like an 88. The flavor of the beer is what like and sorry, it tastes like a lager, but it was fermented at 88. It was a Quebec yeast. I don't know, but have a profile of a Kolsch at 88. I don't know. Those yeasts are like a surprises.
yeah.
What's your if you were to talk to a home brewer who wanted to go pro nowadays, what would be the biggest tip, or like what's been the biggest lesson for you specifically? You were a home brewer for a bunch of years, and then now you're more involved in the commercial side.
It's a hard business. You know, if you're a software developer, keep your day job. It's like it's a job. If you got the passion and you don't really want to do anything else, go for it. If you think it might be kind of cool and you can make some money, that's not really good reason. Start small. If you're going to start your own brewery, start as small as you can and make your mistakes while you're small and find your audience and find your voice. Don't start with a 20 barrel or 30 barrel or something like that. Don't spend a bunch of money. Start and build organically, figure out who you are, figure out what your brand's all about, figure out what you stand for, and build a community around, and can be successful.
Nice.
Sounds like good advice. I think
hope so.
So any reading from Puerto Rican audience or Latin American audience, you can say something to them?
Well, it's just, again, it's I always I always love my travels and interactions with people from across Latin America. The culture is so fabulous. People are so warm. There's so much energy in life. I just can't get enough of it. Been to Brazil a bunch and Mexico a bunch. Never been to Puerto Rico, I'm ashamed to admit. So
gotta put it on the list.
Hopefully I'll see you down there sometime and understand it's lovely. And of course, from Chicago, we have a pretty good size Puerto Rican community here. My neighborhood's more Mexican, but the good sized Puerto Rican community and Puerto Rican restaurants and festivals and things like that. So
nice.
Awesome. If you're ever down in the island, I'll make sure to give us a call or write to us.
Sure. Yeah.
More than happy to have a beer with you and show you around.
Yeah.
For us, it's an honor to have you in our podcast show, whatever. So for us, it's more than an honor to have you here. So, salud.
Salud.
Salud. Thanks for your time.
Hasta la próxima. Breaking News Beer and Coffee.
Gracias, Randy.
We are expecting the new book. I already want to read that book.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Salud.
Be on the lookout for it.
Thank you.
Buenas noches.
Bye now.